proposals from Bill 181 appear to be included within the HRM Charter at the moment. If that's not the case, then I'd appreciate hearing from the Minister about that. But I'm concerned that there are provisions about site planning which are a bit beyond what's already in the Municipal Government Act, although I want to check that by doing line-by-line analysis. But if it turns out that in Bill 179 there are provisions that are ones that are in Bill 181, but therefore yet to be debated by this House, the government would have taken an inappropriate step and should have drawn our attention to that. But as I say, I want to be checking that detail. Well, to sum up, in retrospect, it's fair to say that there are probably some slight differences between the kind of governance that might be available, might be appropriate in HRM, and the kind of governance that might be available in other municipalities around the province. We know that there were already two differences, at least two differences, but two major differences in the Municipal Government Act when it came to the kind of governance that HRM had. One had to do with the power over pesticides. This is a well-recognized item. It's been frequently debated, but it was only a slight difference. The powers that HRM had to deal with pesticides were only slightly different than the powers that most other municipalities had. The other was the governance structure known as community councils. Community councils are a device that are available only in HRM, and really it's a device that's appropriate only where you have a geographically large and a numerically geographically large municipality with a numerically large council, which is what HRM has. A community council is an entity in which some subset of the councillors exercise zoning and other related powers separate from the full council. I don't know that was ever an entirely appropriate mechanism at all as a governance mechanism in HRM, but it was one of the differences. And I think the record is very mixed as to whether it's been a success. But we did have those two differences for HRM that have existed for the last decade, since 1998, when the first Municipal Government Act in Nova Scotia came into effect. Is it time now to move to a different and independent charter for HRM? We have no objection. The objection is only in the details as it plays out. And the objection is also that this is yet again a missed opportunity for the government when it comes to kinds of changes that it should and could have made. But finally, I don't want the government to think that it has escaped our notice that what the government is engaged in is an exercise in which it is really pretending that it knows something about HRM, or pretending that it knows in detail what the concerns are in Metro. There are reasons that the Minister's party has been essentially unsuccessful in finding major representation here, and that is because they continue not to be in touch with what it is that our voters here are interested in. I say that as a member of a party that has representation in Cape Breton, that has representation in rural Nova Scotia, that has representation in small town Nova Scotia, and that has representation in a big way in that part of our province, which has some, I believe, 43% now of the provincial population. So we look forward to this bill going through the process of law amendments. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes the Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm not going to take a lot of the House's time this morning, but I did want to stand and comment with respect to this bill. And as the Speaker will know, and as many of my colleagues in the House will know, I started out my career in politics in municipal government. I served very proudly on the council of the City of Dartmouth prior to the amalgamation of the regional municipality of Halifax. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, something you might not know is that I was actually elected in October and I think it was the 1st of November, just after my election, when the savage government of the day announced the amalgamation that essentially was going to put me out of a job. So, the good news was I found another job, but at the time, as you can imagine, it was quite a tumultuous event because we were all of us who were involved in municipal politics at the time, were involved in the life of our city, were concerned about what that was going to mean for our community and what it was going to mean indeed for the wider municipality. And I think that if you were to come to Dartmouth today, you would find that there are still kind of lingering doubts about the benefits of that amalgamation and whether or not it turned out to be all of the things that it was promoted as at the time. And I remember the report the commission Bill Haywood chaired. You might remember, I believe that commission actually took place under the previous Conservative government, but was implemented under the Liberal administration, which is, of course, another example of bipartisan cooperation between the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party. And all of that is just by way of background this morning. I do note that the City of Dartmouth at that time had its own charter, and that we proceeded on the basis of the powers that were set out in the charter and in other pieces of legislation that affected the municipality, including the Planning Act. You know, I think in those days we ran a pretty efficient little operation in Dartmouth. We had 14 councillors, we had 2 members for each district, and it was pretty difficult actually to go to a community meeting without having one or the other councillor there. There was a very great access to municipal elected representation, and we worked hard to try and make Dartmouth a good place to live with a responsible and responsive municipal council. And I must say, I still to this day am very proud of the time that I spent on that council, and I note that Gloria McCluskey, who was the mayor of Dartmouth at the time, still serves on the regional municipality of Halifax. So it was certainly an interesting time in my political career. What we're here to deal with today, of course, is this bill which sets out the Halifax Charter. As my colleagues, I think, have all noted, we want to see this bill get on to the Law Amendments Committee. We know, as the Minister has said, that there are recommendations forthcoming with respect to there's amendments forthcoming with respect to the bill, so that it more properly reflects what it was that the municipality of Halifax believed they were getting when this legislation was originally introduced. And I think all of us were surprised to see in the current bill sections that amounted to a substantial deviation from what the existing rules, what the existing legislation gave to the municipality of Halifax. So it's difficult, of course, without having seen the amendments, to say whether we agree or disagree with them, because we haven't seen them. But what we are prepared to do is to say that we recognize the desire of the regional municipality of Halifax to have its own charter. We don't think it's an unreasonable request for them to bring to the House of Assembly, and we're going to do our jobs as members of council would expect us to do in examining the legislation and passing judgment on those things which we think are important to the council. So I'm looking forward to seeing the amendment. I'm looking forward to seeing the debate in the Law Amendments Committee. I trust that the government is going to seek the cooperation of all of the parties in the House to try and get this through, and if that's done in the genuine spirit of cooperation, I expect that this bill will pass. So with those comments, Mr. Speaker, I'll take my seat.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes the honourable member from Halifax, Citadel and Sable Island.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Halifax, Citadel, Sable Island. It's a pleasure to rise and to speak to the general principles inherent here in Bill 179. I look forward to the charter on Sable Island at some point, and at respecting the HRM charter. We welcome this legislation, this discussion and debate. It's been a long time. It's been a long time coming. The HRM, as we know, is the largest municipality in Atlantic Canada. It's the economic engine of this region. It's larger than Prince Edward Island in its economy and demographic base, and it's certainly willing and able to govern itself in large measure. And we also welcome the government's newfound commitment to this principle of self-government and local autonomy, and recognizing the rights of local council to shape their own destiny. We believe that those who have the greatest stake in the outcome of a decision should also have the greatest say in making that decision. We believe that those who will have to bear the consequences of a decision should have the greatest say in the making of that decision. It's ironic, Mr. Speaker, that the purpose of this bill, as stated here, is to give broad authority to the Council, including broad authority to pass bylaws and respect its right to govern the municipality in whatever ways the Council considers appropriate within the jurisdiction given to it. It's ironic, Mr. Speaker, because it claims to give the municipalities this right to autonomy and self-government and local decision-making at the time when the Premier himself has said that he has the right to veto decisions made by local council. He claims he has a right, and if he doesn't have a right, he will assert it and move legislation to that effect. So it's ironic, Mr. Speaker, that at a time when we're talking about a charter that would give more autonomy to a local government, the Premier sends a contradictory direction that says that he will not allow them to exercise that right. And he claims to have that right, Mr. Speaker, without consulting the local population. He claims to have that right without being present at the public discussion and the council deliberation that led to a particular discussion. And I would like very much, Mr. Speaker, to hear from the Premier as to why he would want to subvert the democratic process in this issue, and how he would reconcile his recent statements with his professed demand to give the HRM local council some degree of autonomy. It's also ironic, Mr. Speaker, that the government pretends to give local autonomy to the local council at the same time when it's introducing elements to this bill which were not discussed and debated by local council. In fact, were repudiated and rejected by local council, and I'm delighted that the government now tells us that they're going to withdraw those provisions that were not approved of by local council. And we would like to know, as my colleague from Halifax Chiboucto has said, we would like to know what's new in this bill, what elements are new, and why the government claims a right to introduce these new elements in a bill that professes to give local council autonomy. Mr. Speaker, while HRM includes the Capital District, has the seat of government, we know that Halifax is the HRM of the Atlantic economy. The HRM is the economic engine of the Atlantic economy. Halifax is also a community. It's a community of communities, and it's a community of neighborhoods. Each of these communities is local, is unique, and has a right to make its own decisions. In the Halifax Citadel part of my constituency, Mr. Speaker, for example, we are trying to repopulate the downtown. get 25,000 new people to live and work downtown. And we're debating the proper mix of residential and commercial buildings, of making more housing more accessible and affordable, of finding a better way to raise municipal revenues, of sharing the burden of taxation, of reducing traffic in the downtown and strengthening our public transit and active transit, of building on the strengths of our ports and our universities and our arts and our healthcare facilities and assets. These are all not unique to Halifax, but that mix is unique to Halifax, and HRM needs those powers to make decisions relating to these very important assets. We also agree that HRM and its decision-making needs more certainty and predictability and consistency in its decision-making. The decision should be made based on larger principles and objectives and not on who you know and the timeliness of information. We believe that the process needs more clarity, and we also believe that it needs more efficiency and more timeliness. So we support these principles of giving local councils more autonomy. We support these principles of certainty and clarity and predictability. And we also believe that there should be more transparency in decision-making, that there should be more meaningful consultation, especially with the local communities, especially with neighbors who live in proximity to developments. And we look forward to what the government has to say about transparency and consultation in light of the Premier's recent remarks about local councils. And we also look forward to what the public has to say once this bill gets to law amendments. In particular, we're looking to what the public and the council has to say about the adequacy of provisions relating to transparency and accountability, especially as it relates to the rights and responsibilities of elected council and the Utility and Review Board to review decisions relating to specific projects and to site plate planning. In summary, Mr. Speaker, we welcome this discussion and this debate, and we look forward to the discussion in law amendments and to the amendments in particular that the public calls for and amendments that the government will bring forward. Thank you.
The Honourable the Minister of Immigration.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak on Bill 179. Mr. Speaker, my time within municipal government started back in 1988 in the town of Bedford, where we had 7 councillors, and 7 councillors represented about 7,500 people. We were a community very involved in the planning process. We had a municipal planning strategy that was fairly new because the town of Bedford was formed in 1980. And we had at that time planning reviews in 1982 and 1988. Mr. Speaker, when the Halifax Regional Municipality was formed in 1996, it brought with it 196 communities. 196 communities, all with different needs, all with different views on planning. And Mr. Speaker, it was critical at that point in time for the Halifax Regional Municipality to try to bring those 196 communities into somewhat of a single focus. Of those 196 communities, there were 19 planning strategies. 19 planning strategies with these communities that were used by the communities and by the individuals to try to direct planning within those areas. Mr. Speaker, as time went on, HRM saw that they needed to have an overarching view of the entire municipality, and they brought in the HRM regional plan. Mr. Speaker, the regional plan looked at HRM as a whole to try to direct development into the areas that they believed would best fit and suit the planning needs with the regional municipality. Mr. Speaker, HRM is also represented by 23 councillors. Now, I heard the Leader of the Opposition speaking of the City of Dartmouth. The City of Dartmouth, I believe, had 14 councillors at the time, roughly 60,000, 65,000 people. So they represented probably 5,000 people each. I mean, I can think back, as I said, to the town of Bedford. We were 7 and we represented 7,500, probably 1,000 people per councillor. These councillors now, Mr. Speaker, represent an average of 15 to 16,000, some more. I know in the town of Bedford probably is one of the only original seats left where the actual boundaries for the regional municipality, the only boundaries from the old town of Bedford are still intact. And there's roughly probably 20,000 people there now. It's absolute astronomical growth. And it's also one of the regional development centers. So, Mr. Speaker, it's very obvious that the Halifax Regional Municipality, as was stated before, with 380,000 people, probably 40% of the population of this province, probably better than 50% of the economic engine, is a unique animal in its own right and requires its own charter. Through the Union of Nova Scotia Municipalities, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest probably 80 to 90% of the changes that are requested through the MGA are requested by the Halifax Regional Municipality. And for that reason, it's very important that the Halifax Regional Municipality have this charter. And it will facilitate, I won't say it won't make it any easier, but it will facilitate changes that will be required by the Halifax Regional Municipality through this legislature from time to time. Mr. Speaker, Halifax in itself is a very unique area in that Halifax, the old city of Halifax, is a peninsula. And with it being a peninsula and limited access to the peninsula by 2 bridges, the Rotary, and the Fairview Cove area, very limited access to the peninsula and very unique, very different issues surrounding traffic problems. Mr. Speaker, I can think of an initiative right now that's underway with the Halifax Regional Municipality and has passed the Halifax Regional Council early stages, and they have an RFP out right now for the construction of high-speed ferries. Mr. Speaker, back in 2005, the Boston Whaling, New England Whaling was brought up, a high-speed ferry, as a test run to see what the times, wake tests, and what the draw would be in the area for the use of this ferry. Mr. Speaker, that ferry operated for 2 days with full loads at all times. From the time it left Bedford to the downtown core, 13 minutes. From the downtown core, from the ferry terminal, out to Eastern Passage to Purcell's Cove, 6.5 minutes. And I also look at Eastern Passage, and I notice the member there, we've talked about it many times, and it's how critical it is to transportation needs in this area. We talk about greening up the economy. We talk about trying to get cars off the roads. One 250-passenger ferry would probably replace, I don't think I'd be exaggerating if I said 200 cars in one trip. The reason I say that, Mr. Speaker, and I'm one of the guilty ones as well, I drive in the Bedford Highway many mornings by myself, and I look at every other car on the road, and very few cars have any more than one person in them. And that's, yeah, I'll do that. But, Mr. Speaker, we try to do the best we can to try to ensure that the transportation needs of this great area are met. And I look, as many of us do, every morning as we drive in the Bedford Highway on many of these beautiful mornings. And what do you see out on this wonderful basin, this Bedford Basin in the harbor? You see nothing. It is God's natural gift to us for a highway into the center part of this city, and we don't use it. We have to be one of the only places, either on the western seaboard or eastern seaboard, that do not effectively use the greatest gift that we have. There's no infrastructure required other than providing the ferry terminals and providing the vessels. Excuse me, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to the day when, and I hope these vessels, the other thing I really hope, I hope they can be built here in Halifax. I hope they can be built at Halifax in our shipyards here locally. I hope that, and I'm confident that that can happen, and I'm confident that the many people that are going to be required to build them are going to be added to our workforce here. And this government, as we said before, has added over 10,000 jobs in the last year here in Nova Scotia. Many of them right here in the Halifax Regional Municipality. And I look forward to the day when that announcement is made, and I really do hope that they are built here locally. But I look forward to the day when I see that first high-speed ferry running up the harbour to Halifax, running to the Purcell's Cove area, running to Eastern Passage. Eastern Passage is it's like Bedford, and I'm looking at the honourable member from the area. It is, as you know, it's one of the high-growth areas, and it's just expanding so quickly. And to be able to have the option of taking water transportation, not having, if you work in Halifax, not having to take the bridge to try to get to work, to be able to jump on that ferry and be there in 5 or 6 minutes would be a wonderful opportunity. So, Mr. Speaker, Halifax is a unique area. It is a wonderful area, the whole of HRM. But in the core area, it holds many, many challenges from the standpoints of transportation, from the standpoint of development. I mean, you can go on, and there are many of us sitting around here that have sat on Halifax Regional Council and sat on other councils prior to amalgamation, and we know these challenges. So I stand here in support of the Charter. There have been some changes made in it. And I know one of the changes that was made was the removal of the community councils. And I stand here as a representative for the area that requested that. And I'm just going to speak on that for a couple of seconds because I think it's important to understand that in Bedford, we're challenged. We're challenged because we do not have the infrastructure to meet that 20,000 people. We haven't got the infrastructure from the standpoint of recreation to meet that phenomenal growth that we've had. We have one rink. Now here we have a private group of private individuals building that rink now. The concrete is being poured, the Rocky Lake Development Association. We haven't got the infrastructure needs to meet that significant growth in my community. We have a huge tax base. We have a $1.7 billion tax base. So for those reasons, it was believed by the people in my community that the way to try to achieve and to try to expand that recreation needs, to try to do things within our community, could be done through another avenue, and that would be the local community councils. Obviously, it was not accepted by the Halifax Regional Municipality, and it wasn't accepted by many of the colleagues here in the House, and it's been removed. But I want everybody to understand here, it wasn't placed there. It wasn't placed there to try to sideline this legislation. And I'm standing here as a Minister of Immigration, a member of this government, but most importantly, the MLA for the Bedford-Birch Cove area. And if somebody has to take responsibility for it, I will. And it was not placed in the legislation by any means to try to sideline it. It was placed there to try to do something right, for our community, to try to get some of the things that we genuinely need in the Bedford area. You know, in the Bedford area, part of our growth has been the growth in immigration. We have, in 1988, when I first came to council in Bedford, there was maybe 7,500, 7,600 people in the community. And you would have been hard-pressed to find an immigrant in our community. Here we are 20 years later. We've grown 300% roughly. And I am proud to stand here and tell everybody in this chamber, 30 to 35% of my community is immigrant-based. They are wonderful people to have in our community, and we are so glad to have them. Mr. Speaker, HRM, along with my own community, is growing. We've got to keep it healthy. This charter, this HRM charter does that. I believe it's needed. It's desperately needed. I am sensing, I hear some consensus within the House here that what we are putting on the table here as government will proceed to law amendments, will be reviewed, and hopefully will be approved. So, Mr. Speaker, I will take my seat. I thank everybody for their comments. I look forward to this charter receiving approval for the second reading and onto law amendments, and hopefully in the end, a charter at the end of this House for HRM. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable, the Minister of Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's nice to have the opportunity to get up this morning and share a little bit of history and to talk a little bit about the HRM and the HRM Charter. There's a number of us, a few of us, that have something very common here in regards to the HRM. I'll call it the members now, but then the fathers, the founding fathers of the HRM. I don't know if, no, I'm talking about, no, excuse me, Mr. Speaker. I'm talking about the founding fathers. I don't believe that we have members here that were in the HRM at the time of creation, so I would like to make that clarification. So once again, there are a few of us, members in the House, that have something in common in regards to the topic that we're discussing, in that there are a few of us that could be called the founding fathers of the HRM. The member from Halifax, Chebucto, and also the member from Hammonds Plains and Sackville, Mr. Speaker, and of course myself, then a councillor of District 1, now taken over by Councillor Stretch. He does a great job representing the people there of the Eastern Shore. Mr. Speaker, what a wonderful opportunity. What a great thing to be able to stand here now representing the people on a provincial level, to be able to share with the folks of this House the real story about the amalgamation of the HRM. But I want to go back just a little bit before that, Mr. Speaker, and talk a little bit about county council. As my colleague across the way expressed his feelings in regards of being council and being a part of the town of Bedford, I also would like to express some of my concerns about what happened to the county council. I can remember, not unlike anyone else here, we decide to represent the people. We do not wake up one morning and decide to be a representative, regardless of what side of the House we sit on. There's usually a reason why someone of a certain nature decides to represent their people in government. And I can remember there was a specific issue on the Eastern Shore, and I was in a meeting one evening, and I did not like the tone of the meeting. I did not like the direction of the meeting, and it would be fair to say I did not like the way the representative of that time was handling that situation. So I went home and decided that I would run for council. County Council, District 10 on the Eastern Shore, which encompassed an area, a very small area, from Musquodoboit Harbour to Ship Harbour. Oh, at that time, probably 6,000 people. Mr. Speaker, the then mayor, Randy Ball, was the mayor at the Halifax County, and the election went on, the politics took place, and election night, arrived, and I was successful.
Order, please.
And chatter's getting a little high.
An opportunity to sit on Halifax County Council with Mayor Randy Ball. But before I was sworn in, I can remember exactly where I was when I heard on the radio that the news of then Minister Jollymore was going to amalgamate the HRM. Jolly was going to amalgamate the four units prior to us even being sworn in. So in one sense, I was just elected, but knew the date. Within 1 year, we had to be re-elected if we so chose to go to the HRM. Well, you know what, Mr. Speaker? Wow, that was exciting news. I'm not saying, Mr. Speaker, it was news, and I'm going to make a reference soon. To the member across the way. He may recall as well. I was then known as the county gentleman from the Eastern Shore, and the media quickly picked up on all this, and they said, man, we've got some media news for some time to come. We're going to pit the county against the city, and we're going to ask them questions, and rightfully so, because at that time, Mr. Speaker, there was a difference. There was a clear difference in what the people of the Eastern Shore expected the representative to do and did what they expected to pay for. The rate at that time was 89 cents per 100 of assessment plus an area rate for our fire department. The fire department had full control of what they did in the community, but they had to have the will of the community. So if they wanted to buy a new truck, if they wanted to add an addition on the fire hall or whatever they wanted to do, they actually had to go out to the community, hopefully had the support of the county councilor, and ask the community if they could increase the area rate of 1 cent or 2 cents per hundred of assessment and buy a new fire truck to protect the community. Well, you know, it didn't usually go well. There was always quite a stir in the community at that time. People would have to lobby back and forth. The councilor and the fire chief would have to stand up, do their presentation. Oh, it was always quite an exciting time in the county. But the people usually agreed, and the fire department people would get their truck. I'm saying this today so you just have to understand how close then municipal government was to the grassroots level of government in a real sense. We have other councillors that would agree, and people that have a municipal background would agree. It was very grassroots type of representation. So we went in and paid our 89 cents, and we did get some support at that time. And our bylaw officers, our fire department raised their own money, the dog catchers, some building officers would support our community, but we did not really receive a lot of services. And that became the issue. The issue became, if we enter into the HRM, what authority do we still have to govern our own people? Would it be then attached to a much larger scope? And what would be the thought of development? What new grounds will we be breaking as a regional municipality? Well, member across the way, you can remember your position, and I hope you can remember my position. Clearly, the first interview in regards to the Halifax Regional Municipality was between the member across the way from Halifax Chebucto and the member of the Eastern Shore, and I can even remember the day, the question the gentleman asked us on the radio. Where do you want to set as a council? Because county council was sitting in the county building, and of course the Halifax council town was sitting here up the hill. So anyway, in the spirit of compromise, right off the mark, I decided I wanted to be a player, and I agreed that it wasn't where you sat made the difference, but what you did where in the building. And I, at that time, believed in representation, I believed in the people, and I believed that we had a role to play in building this new HRM. And the member across the way, he did agree with the member from the HRM. Now, we have some folks in the media that are still hanging around here in this house. Some of our media people today that are reporting provincially started out with us in county council, they started out with us in regional councilor, and they're still here today reporting the achievement of us as representatives. Now, this, Mr. Speaker, this could take hours for me to explain. Now, I remember, and the member away, and I say this respectfully, I can remember the issues started to arrive at council, and there were some hot debates at that time. We were joining Halifax and Dartmouth and Bedford and also the county, 4 municipalities. Well, I'm not going to speak about how the people within those areas agreed or what their point of view was on the amalgamation, but I think you know what the position of the people of Bedford were clearly understood in regards to the amalgamation. The people in Dartmouth had their position. The people in Halifax had their position. And Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that the people in the county had their position, and they still hold that position today. There are still some people, Mr. Speaker, there are some people that still in the county today share the same point of view in regards to amalgamation. But once amalgamation was in place, I think it was incumbent upon the representatives to work together collectively to make this successful. And now, you look back at the identities, you look back at those people who have fought and positioned themselves, and here we are today speaking about a brand new charter. The other night, as most of us, we were interested in listening to the results and the HRM, and the rest of you from other areas would be interested in listening to your results throughout Nova Scotia. But what did they focus on? What did the media, what did the people focus on as the results were coming in? Here it was clear. It was clearly defined. Has the amalgamated unit worked for the betterment of the people in which it was designed to do? There's the question. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to go down that road today too far because I don't want to anger. I don't want to anger the members of this House, but has it been successful? Has it been successful? Later on, I will speak to the member, I'm sure, outside Halifax, Shabakto will probably be wanting to speak to me a little later on. But his point of view was very clear that there should be urban growth, that the people from the county of municipality of Halifax should move closer to the city because his position was it costs less to provide services at that time. I believe that was his position. This angered the people in the county. It's true, and if he has any problems with what I'm saying now, I would ask him to stand up and correct me, and if I am wrong, I will apologize, because I don't think this is a debate we're having. I believe it's just my position and clarifying the comments of the member. But the member not the member, but then councillor from the Eastern Shore said, what does this guy mean, move everyone from the country into the city simply because we would save dollars, on services? Well, that was the position then, and I tell you, it's still the position today. People are asking, now that the municipal rate is $1.09, maybe $1.29 when you add the scenario mechanism of fire, have the people benefit by the amalgamated unit? That's a good question. That's a good question. 89 cents per 100 assessment, $1.29 per 100 assessment, but they do now. They have lost the ability to have input on their community issues because now it was in the council, community council, but that's gone now. Now it's mostly dealt with in council as a body. Mr. Speaker, this is still a very real issue. This is still a real issue with the people in the amalgamated units. Now, I want to tell you, remember what I said, move the rural people into the urban core, and the reason was to save dollars. And I remember the media used to play back and forth on that. He would do his interview, I would do mine. But as good gentlemen, when we would meet in the council floor, we would always respect each other's position. I remember at that time, there was a mayor by the name of Walter Fitzgerald. And also a councillor, David Hinsby, at that particular time. And this is bringing back yes, he's back, and he's happy he was re-elected, and I congratulate him for the hard work that he does for the people of his riding. And I want to tell you, Mr. Speaker, matter of fact, I'll go one step further. It is an experience, and I'll tell you, to have two councillors in my riding that we share the same point of view, Councillor Stretch, Councillor Hinsby, and myself. We work together as a team for the people of the Eastern Shore, that's clear, and we do promote similar things. One is development and opportunities for our people. We believe in good health, we believe in education, we believe in providing jobs for the people that we represent. And you know, Mr. Speaker, they demand that of us, and we deliver it. We do so. And I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, I was talking about something, got a little sidetracked because I'm feeling rather good today. Because we're going home to be with our people this weekend. But you know, Mr. Speaker, when we talk about the economy, when we talk about the people who we represent, and regardless what side you sit on, we share the same goal. We represented them. And at this particular time, what are some of the concerns that all Nova Scotians are sharing? They're sharing this, Mr. Speaker. They're sharing this. They're saying, Mr. Speaker, when they lay their head on their pillow at night, they're saying, you know, is my family safe? Are my children safe? And will I have the ability, Mr. Speaker, to provide in the climate, that forecast, to provide for my children and for our children? Each mom and dad, or regardless who are the caregivers, they share the same goal. Are our children safe? Am I going to be able to provide for them in the future? Well, Mr. Speaker, in this debate, I clearly say that it's our position that these questions are asking get answered in a positive way. Back to municipal politics, Mr. Speaker, and I don't want to be taken off the track a little bit. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, I want to tell you, I'm just speaking about the charter of the HRM. And the question that's not answered by those who live within the HRM is not answered clearly, and and I don't mean to be negative, has that municipal unit worked for all people? That's just a simple question I'm posing here today. Mr. Speaker, the people know that. I don't have to go out and do a survey, although maybe the member can remember when I thought that we should be addressing that. So I launched in the District 1 at that particular time an opportunity then blessed by the government of the day. I can remember that. The Liberal government actually provided a resource and persons to give me the information to go out and to ask the people of the District 1 area, are you satisfied with the unit? Would you want to separate if you could? So I launched a series of meetings in town halls, or community halls, I should say, on the Eastern Shore, and it was covered by the CBC. I can remember my first meeting was in a place down east called Moser River. I moved into Sheet Harbor, on to Orshapon, the Jadors, and Musquodoboit Harbor, and I asked the people the question with the appropriate information, not taking any bias, being a representative of the people, just trying to ask the people if they were satisfied after 4 or 5 years with amalgamation. And once again, had the support of the then Liberal government. We wanted to know. Also, at that same time, when I was going through that exercise, the people of Bedford at that time, who were a township, didn't have the right to move away from the HRM, but they were watching closely. So I went out and provided the appropriate information and took a vote, took a vote at every hall, and I said to the people, here's an opportunity for us to move away from the amalgamated unit if you wish. And I'm going to report the findings of that. The people at that particular time said that it was their wish to remain a part of the HRM unit because they did see the benefit of certain services. And I see the member, he's sitting quite patiently because he knows I'm having a little fun with it, but he knows I'm telling the story, and it's as truthful as I can recall. It's been a long time ago. Back probably 96 or 97, I started that exercise. But I would go to council, and that member would stand up in his place, and he would pound the living daylights out of me because he knew that possibly there was some legs growing under this movement. He wasn't sure if I wanted to move the people out of the HRM or did I want to keep them in. He wasn't really understanding where I was coming about or not, but I'll be able to share that with him today and answer that question. I was providing a level of representation in which the people of the Eastern Shore deserved. I put the question to them, and they given me at that time the answer, and I delivered that to council. Walter Fitzgerald, I'll never forget, Mayor Walter Fitzgerald. Political stripe a little different than mine, but I must say I enjoyed serving in his council because we all learned a lot from joining all of those municipalities together. He said, at those days, it wasn't, well, it was appropriate for the time. Son, would you sit down and stop talking? He said one day. And I always can remember that. And that time, yep, I knew it. I want to get a few of his ramped up there. But he understood the passion that I had to represent the people of the Eastern Shore. But getting back to the election results of the night of the municipal election, you were watching it, I'm sure. Some of you were celebrating, some of you were crying. But that night, the question that was on TV, the question on TV was, you know, is this unit working? Is this unit working? Well, member from Halifax, Chebucto, is it working? Is it working? When lately we see council divided on so many issues. We see council divided on so many issues. Well, we can tear that apart and say, why is it that council is separated? Why do we have a 50-50 split on a lot of issues? Why are they moving slowly? Why does it seem like development is not taking place in the downtown core? You know, is it true? Do we have a downtown core that's not developing? Answer the question. Do we see the downtown core moving forward? And always remember, I'll stand here in my place and say, what's good for Halifax is good for all of Nova Scotia. I believe most of you understand this is the capital city. We understand that you know, the tax base is here, and we receive good things in all parts, all communities add up to a wonderful province. But getting back to the municipal unit, that particular night, the media and all the people were asking, is this working? Why is there a division? Is it because that rural aspect is still there? Is it that people are parochial Is it that the Halifax part still believe in things that people of a rural nature seem to weld themselves with? And is it that the people from the urban area deal with transit and other things that may be less important to other people or in a different scope? I don't know. Answer that question while I'm speaking. I'm very curious. So there is certainly, I guess, you know, I can remember, you know, a lot of times in council when I started about this and about being under attack simply because I didn't give in to the flavor of the day, simply because I didn't want to be a part of the club, simply for all of those reasons. And people used to say negative things, but I'll tell you what, you could never ever say that I did not represent my people. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm doing here today. So I can listen to the cat calls. I can listen to people who don't really have the foundation in municipal politics as the founding fathers have, and I'm not scared to say that because that experience was different, although many people here have contributed in their own way and have brought special things to HRM Council. But unless you were part of the founding fathers of HRM, you'll never truly understand the passion all of us have, and I speak well for my colleague over there who had that urban passion, who had the spirit of those who, in which at that time he thought that he had the right point, but I don't know if it was or not. But anyway, the point is, folks, getting back to, so when we went into the regional municipality, things changed as representatives as well. I can remember being a county councillor. You'll have a giggle about this, but we were so grassroots. We actually helped get that little old lady's cat out of the tree. You know, we were there. We sure at that time, and that's why I said I knew you would giggle. You would giggle about that, and they're still talking about cats in the HRM. They haven't got that resolved yet. That cat's still up the tree, by the way. But the point is, Mr. Speaker, I'm here to say that Bill Duke's climb up that tree and take the cat down for any constituents within his riding. That's for sure. I didn't know about that. I can tell you. But anyway, the member from Halifax Chebucto remembers well that the issues were clearly defined, rural and urban, and I say there are still issues that define councillors and the urban concept and to the position themselves in the rural way, urban way. It's very clear that there is still an issue there. Thank you. So anyway, how much time do I have left? Because I want to now switch. I want to now switch around. I want to go into a deeper thought. I haven't started speaking yet, brother. I want to tell you today it's hard to fool this old guy in regards to municipal politics. I was there. I'm a founding father. I have a special place in my heart for municipal politics. I'm just bringing out a few questions today to have them answered within the minds of my colleagues on both sides of the House, maybe questions in which sometimes we're afraid to ask. But I'll stand here and I'll ask the questions because I want the answers. I want the answers. Questions are, has the amalgamated unit, now there would be a few people taking this to heart, and I expect they should. Has the amalgamated unit been as successful as first thought it would be? Has those of the rural area received the services as they thought they would have, or as they should? Is there equity? Is there equality? Is there fairness in the whole makeup of the HRM? I remember the then Tsar had made a lot of promises. I would like to go back, member, and do some homework maybe this weekend. I was going to spend a little time with the family, but maybe I'll go back and do some research on the research and look up the promises of amalgamation in 1995-96. I can remember the town hall meetings throughout all municipalities and the things that were promised. I don't know. I'm not saying the promises weren't kept, but I'm wondering if they had all been kept. Maybe you would like to have some input and a little later on share some of the thought process. And if I have said anything incorrectly, please shine some light on that today. And I would also ask the member across the way, for his opinion. Does he believe that the amalgamated unit has been successful? Do you believe the promises of the Tsar of the time had promised us, have they been kept? Do you believe that the people of the rural area versus the people of the urban area are paying a tax that pays for the services? All of those things. And you know what? I know you know these answers as well as you know I know them, but I want to create a little energy here today because it's the appropriate time to talk about these things. How many years has it been? Almost 10 years, and we're talking about a charter for the HRM, so I think it's only appropriate to bring up a little bit of the past and to talk about the Founding Fathers and those who have served and worked, I might add, I have lots of ammunition, but thank you. For those who have served and worked so hard to bring it together. We did have certain battles. We fought, we had to talk about fire services. We had to talk about policing services, community services at that time. All of these things. We had to talk about what was the provincial government. I got it. What is the provincial government? Is the provincial government responsible for? I can remember down there, isn't it funny how times change? I can remember standing up there blaming the provincial government for certain things at that particular time. Now I stand here, I don't know. Oh, well, rightfully so. And now there are some, things that I'm thinking about that if I was on council, I would have probably made some changes or supported some votes in a different way. But anyway, that's a part about being alive. That's a part about believing in democracy. That's about being here and representing your constituency and your people who live in that constituency and believing in them. I believe in democracy. I believe in the right to come to Halifax and to share the concerns of the people I represent, whether they be positive, whether they be negative to the issue. And I think that this side of the House can certainly say that throughout the many years we've been here, successful years we've been here, one thing that we focused on has been the people of Nova Scotia, and I believe we've done a good job on that. There's no doubt about that. So anyway, as we move forward, there'll be more, thank you, there'll be more debate about the HRM. Has it been successful? Has it not been successful? I haven't shared my point of view. It's too early in the debate to do that. I'm trying to encourage other people. There was an old gentleman down in my riding. His name was Jimmy Kidson. I can remember he's passed on now. He's in glory. But I want to tell you, Jimmy Kidson was an amazing man. Jimmy Kidson used to go to the community halls and he would listen to all of the speakers until at the end of the meeting, Jimmy Kidson would stand up and he would share his point of view, and I'll tell you, he had the right point of view because he listened to everyone in the hall, and he rationalized that. I want to tell you, the question is, as we address the charter, has it been the right thing for the people of the 4 municipalities? Have we made the right decisions? Are they satisfied? Do they have an opportunity to have input? Have they staked their position in the greatest gift to society today, and that's democracy? Do they know how to state the position in democracy? Are they informed as they should be? Do they have the decision-making powers they should have? Municipal government is a very important level of government. And as I said earlier, I have a special place in my heart for municipal politics because I still believe there's a place for municipal politics. I believe it's a level of government that's very close to the people, and I believe we have a lot of good people. I believe that we have a lot of good people representing their people in the municipal level. Not only in the HRM, but in all of Nova Scotia. That's for sure. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell you today, this is no small thing we do.
I wonder if the honourable member would consider adjourning debate for today.
Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of the day, I'd certainly like to move to adjourn debate and maybe have an opportunity to address this issue because really I'm only in county politics. I haven't really told my story about regional municipal politics yet, but thank you.
The Honourable, the Government Deputy House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And that concludes the government's business for today. I move that we now do adjourn until Monday, where the hours will be from 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. After the daily routine, Business will be public bills for second reading. The following bills. Number 179, 181, 182, 186, and 187, 189, 190, 191, and 193.
The motion before the host is that we now adjourn until Monday at 4:30. All those in favor? Against? Motion is carried.